Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'll try to talk a little bit about what are the different REST APIs which are available for us to get the data from NSE or any other website. And I'll also discuss a bit about how to check from any website, how can you get the freely available APIs. So we'll discuss about that. And towards the end of the video, I'll talk about some of the popular Python packages which are available in market for fetching the data from NSE. So coming to the part of REST APIs which are used for fetching the data, I have made a short list of some of the REST APIs which are freely available and you can use them to get the data from NSE. So let's go to this txt file. So as you can see that I have mentioned some of the REST APIs which NSE is providing, and these are from the NSE website itself. So if we hit any of these APIs, we will get back the response in the form of a JSON. And then in whatever programming language you are comfortable, you can parse the data and use it for your own whatever algo or system you are trying to build. So I'll try to go over some of these APIs and also show you what is the data which we get. So we go over to Google Chrome and I'm going to paste one of these APIs into the address bar. I'll also show you how to get these APIs. So just bear with me. So this API, when I'm pasting into the browser and hitting enter, it's showing me this JSON. So let's zoom in a bit. So basically it is showing me what is the current status of the market. Now this may not be very easily readable to you. So since it's a JSON response, what you can do is you can go to any JSON formatter website, JSON validator, JSON formatter, and you can just Google around on JSON formatter, and whatever JSON you for response you have got, you can just paste it. And so if we paste this JSON which we got from the NSE website as a response, so I'm just copying it and I'm pasting it in the JSON formatter. And you can see that on the right hand side it has got beautified a bit. So now the JSON is properly readable, so we can see the market state, and in the market state we have different markets. So there is capital market, currency market, commodity market, and debt market. So these four sub fields are there in this, and if I expand them again, so you can see that currency market is closed, and similarly commodity market is closed. So basically this was a REST API to tell us the market status, whether the markets are opened or closed, which market is open, which market is closed. So let's take a couple of other examples. So if I go to say corporate action REST API, so if I'm going to this and pasting it, so this is the response which I'm getting. So this is the corporate action for today. If I copy the complete JSON and paste it in my JSON formatter, so you can see that what are the corporate actions for today. So Scient Limited has declared an interim dividend. The record date is 27th, and you can see interest payment of the government of India bonds is on 27th. So there are many things like NMDC. So whatever corporate action is coming up in near future, like this company is giving bonus of 1:1, the X date is 27th October and record date is 27th. So whatever corporate action is there, this is coming in my response to this JSON request from this REST API. So similarly, now I'll go back to the, say, let's say we take up a stock. Now this is going to give me data for Axis Bank. And if I paste this in my request, so in my browser, I'm pasting this URL and I have got all the response. Now if I control A, control C, paste it in the JSON formatter, you can see that this is the data pertaining only to Axis Bank. So we get all the data, like what is the ticker, what is the industry it belongs to, and then a lot of other detail. And now if you see for the further metadata, it will give us some of the data which we want. If we want, we can use. So you can see the sector PE, the symbol PE. So this is the sector PE 18.5. This is the PE of Axis Bank 16.9, and there is a lot of other data. Now in the other data, we have to specifically be interested in the price info. So in the price info bracket, we can see that This is the change in the price of Axis Bank in the last session. This is the percentage change and other data. So lower circuit, upper circuit, all of that we are getting in this JSON response. And we are also getting intraday high low and week high low values. And you can also see what was the order book looking like when it was in pre-market open. So you can see the price and the quantity over here. So whatever is the price and quantity here, that would be these are pre-open values. So may or may not be of much use to you. Okay, and then now if we go to another URL, let's say I want the option chain of Nifty. So this one is going to be pretty long because option chain, as you know, has a lot of data. So I'm going for option chain of Nifty. This is the response I've got. As you can see, it's a very long page. It has a lot of data in this. Let's copy and paste it into JSON formatter. And here we go. Yeah. So we can see that every expiry, every strike price of the particular expiry we can get. So these are the different expiry dates of upcoming expiries of Nifty. So you can see 27th October, then weekly expiries of November 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th. So this JSON response can also be used if you can extract this field of expiry dates. You can also use this JSON response for knowing when the expiries are happening, and you can set alerts based on whether it's an expiry on a day or not. So we have long dated options also, option chain also here. You can see 2024, 25 also. Then comes the data, and data is a very long data field. So it's containing the complete strike prices and their open interests. So you can see the strike price 7500. So 7500 PE, and we are having some open interest, then 8500 PE, and so on. So we have a lot of data in this. Now you can see 8500 CE, and similarly 8700 PE, then 8700 CE, and all of this data will be there in this. So you can build your own option chain, but I would not advise you to reinvent the wheel. If you are trying to do some calculations based on option chain, you can use this data. Otherwise, if you just want to visualize it, there are tools like Sensible, and Upstocks also has the option chain. NSE website itself has an option chain. So it's better to visualize over there. If you are doing any calculations based on option premiums, or you are trying to calculate your own option Greeks, then maybe you might need to read through this option chain and fetch the data, because you can see that every strikes IV is also mentioned, and every strikes we have the prices also mentioned. So you may want to build any OI based tool or something, you can use this data for that. Okay, so now let's take another example. So this is a very popularly used REST API. This I use a lot because you can see it's giving me securities in FNO. And if I call this API in my browser, you can see that it has fetched me the data for all the securities in FNO, and it will have all the data. And now if I try to format this, you can take a look at the data it's bringing me. So basically it's fetching me all the data of all the FNO listed stocks. So there are approximately 200 listed stocks, and those 200 I can get the data here. Yeah, so you can see Axis Bank, Gujarat Gas, Canara Bank. So for every FNO listed stock, we are getting the data. Now, what is the data we are getting? What was the open? What is the day's high? What is the day's low? What is the last traded price? And what was yesterday's close? And the change, the percentage change. Now, the things which we need, or maybe I personally use, I use the total traded volume, because it gives me that instantaneous traded volume of a stock. Like what is the traded volume till now? And obviously it has some lag because the API is not updated every second or every millisecond. So there will be some lag in the total traded volume. But if you try to compare it with say a broker like Zerodha or Upstocks, these numbers will more or less match. Now if you see, there is more data around this, like what was the weekly high, what was the weekly low, how much far it is from weekly high, from how far it is from weekly low, year high, year low, what was the yearly low. Then it also gives me the percentage change in the last 30 days in the stock. So percentage change in the last 1 year in the stock. So those kind of stuff is also there. So I use it mainly for analyzing the volume which is currently, which has so far been traded in the day. And since I am more interested in FNO stock, so this solves the purpose. Now, how do you get these APIs? That's the main point. So as I said, you will see how to check the available APIs from any site. So let's go to NSE's website, NSE India. Now the thing is, whatever data you want from NSE's website, first what you have to do is you have to see that is that data available on the NSE's UI, NSE website's UI. So there is a older site as well, but right now I will be using the newer website only. So let's see how can I get these APIs. Let's say you want something from the market data, and if I go to derivatives market, you can see that whatever distance, whatever different contracts are available, we are able to see these here. And now if we go to say in Nifty 50 options, now how do I get this data into my source code? Like how do I parse the JSON? How do I get the REST API and how do I parse the JSON? So let's look at that. So you just have to right click in the browser and click on inspect. And once you have clicked on inspect, you can go to the network tab. Yeah. So once you go to the network tab, you just have to refresh the page. If you refresh the page, all the requests will go again. Because right now I'm not seeing any data here in the network tab. Now if I hit refresh, you can see that a lot of data has been updated here and the web page is getting refreshed. Now on in this, if you see the type, I am sorting it by type and I am more interested in XHR. So in XHR, you can see XHR is nothing but the HTTP requests which the browser is making to the NSE server. So now the data which has been fetched will be part of some or the other XHR. So you can see the market status API being called. So this URL is actually my market status API. So if I click here, request URL, and I click on copy value, you can see that I just copied it and it's the same API which I hit earlier when I was demonstrating the market status. So you can see this API will return me the market status, what market is open and what market is closed. Similarly, let's go to some other XHR. Let's say live equity or maybe circulars or latest circular. So these are different APIs. Now let me see what latest circular returns. So latest circular, yeah, it has given me some data. I don't think it's much useful. Maybe I'll show some other data. Now if you go to live equity derivatives, index is equal to top 20 contracts. So this REST API, if I try to hit this REST API in my browser, I am getting the top 20 contracts data. I can visualize this. I can just copy this and paste it in my JSON formatter. So here if I paste it, so this is showing me the data of top 20 contracts which have been traded. So similarly, I can fetch the data of anything. I can fetch the correct API for whatever data I want. Now let's close this. Let's go for some other stock. Let's search for a stock. So maybe I'll just go to market data and I'll go to equity. Now here I can go for something like, maybe I'll type it here only, Axis Bank, or let's take some other example, Apollo Tires. So you can see that I have got some data of Apollo Tires, total volume of shares traded, total traded value and market cap. And so in the market hours, you will also get the order book over here. So you can see this part basically, the order book, the bid quantity and ask quantity. Now, if I want to pull this data into a, say into my code, via a script, what I'll do is I'll first figure out what is the REST API being used for this data. So if I can figure out the REST API which is being used for this data, I can pull this data in my code and do whatever I want. So let's inspect, go to the network tab, hit refresh for Apollo tires, and let's see what are the APIs being used. So in XHR, I'll just be, yeah, so here I am seeing something like quote equity symbol is equal to Apollo tire. Let's use this. Copy value. Let's see what data this returns. And I'll try to copy this into my JSON formatter. Yeah, so here what we have got is a symbol and then the sector P, symbol P, and again I have got those values like what is the intraday high low and maximum high low. So here again you are getting pre-open depth. What you will also get is market order, market depth, market buy quantity, market sell quantity in the current market, but currently it's not happening because it's not trading right now because the market is currently closed. So let us say that you want to get the order book for a stock. How will you get the order book? Let's see that. So you can see that in Apollo Tires, the order book is saying that there are 519 quantity bid is placed at 281.75. So if I want to know where the buyers are sitting, where the sellers are sitting, what I can do is maybe I'll go to this API, Apollo Tires, and section is equal to trade info. Let's copy this REST API and try to hit this. It has given me a data. You can already see this. I think it will be there in the order book. Yeah, so you can see price 281.5 and quantity 519. So I think you can get it from here, but still I'll just try to format this better. So you can see that this is the bid order book where the topmost order is this. Similarly, this is the ask order book, and since currently market is closed, so there is no bid and ask orders properly filled, but you can see that whenever the market is open, these top 5 bids on both the sides, top 5 bids and top 5 asks will be displayed, and other data also you can use, free float, market cap and other stuff. So this is how you get the data of any stock. So if you want, you can just write a script which will change the ticker and the rest of the stuff will stay the same. What I mean by that is, let's take the example of this, and in the trade info API, instead of Apollo tires, you will write something else. If you write Axis Bank, it will give you the data for Axis Bank. So simply changing the ticker here will give you the data, order book data and other data about a stock. So you can just write it in a loop and keep changing the symbol, and you will keep getting the data for the listed stocks on NSE. So that's how we manipulate the REST API and fetch the data for all the stocks. Similar thing I have done for money control. So if I will not be showing it in the video, so you can just do that. You can just open money control. You can go somewhere like markets. Maybe let's go to top gainers. If you want something like trying to fetch top gainers, even though I think it is better if you fetch top gainers from NSE because NSE has their data. If NSE does not have any data, then maybe you should go to other websites, try to find out what REST APIs those websites are using. Okay, and then maybe you can get the data into your code and use it. Let's see if we can get this top gainers. So I'll go and do the same thing, inspect element. It's a lot. Actually, websites like Money Control will be using a lot of ad servers and ad delivery engines. So there will be a lot of useless REST APIs. You can see this is on Google. So request URL has google.com. Then this request URL has Google syndication.com. These are useless. We have to figure out what are the REST APIs going to Money Control's server. So maybe I can look at this. Let me try this again. And it's not taking it. It's not taking it. It should be BSC or something. IN BSCN. I think there is some issue because the API is containing a %3 and That's not coming up here. I'm not sure if this will return. Yeah, so it's not returning any data because the index is not correct. So similarly, we have to figure out what are the APIs which will return the data which we need. And most of the APIs I'm seeing here are all about delivering ads. So you will have to figure out which is the proper API. So anyways, I'll be sharing some of the APIs which I use. So here you can see that I have listed down 3 APIs which I use a lot. So one is for expiry. So you can see that I use this API to figure out what are the next 3 monthly APIs. So you can see here, if I hit this API, it's telling me the next 3 API dates. Sorry, next 3 expiry dates. Now, if I go and try to put out this API, so this is hitting api.moneycontrol.com. So here I have taken a stock ID and expiry date, and because this expiry is not correct, I mean it is already gone. So let's make it 2022, and let's change the month to October 27th. So this month's expiry and ID I will use as something like BPI1, BPI02, which is for burger paints. So BPI02, let's see what it gives. Yeah, so this is giving me the data for burger paints. Now if I visualize it in a JSON formatter, yeah, so we have last traded price change, and we can see the OI change, the OI percentage change, and what is happening in the OI. Is it say short covering, long unwinding, and all of that? What is the current rollover, and what is the current market wide position limit? So MWPLP, when it reaches about 90, the chances of a stock going in FNO ban are high. So we got all this data from Money Control. So basically that's the gist of it, that Money Control also has some APIs which I was able to crack using the same process. So I go to the website and I do inspect element, and I figure out which are the APIs which are being used for price feed. So that's what I used for money from Money Control as well. Now moving on to the last part. What are the popular Python packages for fetching the NSE data? So there are 3 or 4 popular packages which I can talk about. Let's talk about those. So one of them is NSE Python. So if you go to NSE Python's installer, you can reach the documentation page as well. So you can just install NSE Python, and how do you install? So the simple step is pip install NSE Python, and NSE Python will get installed. Then most of the functions will be available to you. So if we go to the documentation which I just opened, so there is a lot of uh, you can say data or APIs already exposed to you. So you don't have to yourself try and fetch the data from NSE, because NSE Python will also do the same thing for you. And you can read the documentation and call this in your code, and you will be able to get all the data which is provided by NSE Python. So NSE Python has some APIs already exposed, like you can fetch option chain, you can fetch India VIX. So index info will give you the info of any index. If you pass it Bank Nifty, it will give you that. If you pass India VIX, it will give you that. If you go through the documentation, you will be able to figure out what all it is having. So if you call equity history function, so this function is already in this NSE Python. You can just pass the symbol series start and end, and it will fetch you the data for that particular symbol for a certain expiry. So similarly, you can get derivative history for any option. So these are the basic points about NSE Python. So another library which I often use is NSE Pi. So NSE Pi is not maintained a lot now, but as you can see that the last update into the repository was on 20th July 2020. So it has not been updated for more than 2 years, but it's still useful. So I also use NSE Pi, and NSE Pi and NSE Python both have a lot of functions which will give us the data already. So yeah, so that these are a couple of open source APIs. Open source, I would say, frameworks, NSE Pi and NSE Python. Another one is Pi NSE. So this Pi NSE is also a library for the same purpose. It fetches the data from NSE, and whatever APIs I showed you, these APIs and more than that, a lot more than these, are already included in these packages, and they will probably solve your purpose of fetching the data, fetching live volume, live price and all that. But if you still feel that some data is not provided in these frameworks and you want it, you will have to do that reverse engineering. You will have to go to the NSC website and do that inspect element, and you will have to figure that information out for yourself. Now I'll just show us a small code sample how I use this. So let us, maybe I'll go through one example from each. So in my so I have a, say, Python script. I have written Nifty expiry predictor. So in this I am trying to predict the expiry with a certain level of certainty. So as you can see that here I have imported NSC Pi, and from NSC Pi I have imported the function get history directly, and I just call the get history on Nifty, and I choose the starting date as this and end date as today. And what I get is I get all the data in a pandas data frame. And then when I've got the data from Nifty for a certain period of time, then I'll just see what is the last 365 day, 30 day, 90 day. I use it for my own calculations. Now after that, I'm just calculating the standard deviation and trying to predict what would be in within 68% range, what would be in 95% range of one standard deviation, and then I display the data. So you see that all this calculation doesn't matter. What matters is how you are using the API. So in this script, I am importing NSC Pi's get history function, which directly gives me get history for the Nifty 50 for the last 4 or 5 years, whatever range I choose. Same thing if I can do for Nifty Bank, and same thing I can do for any stock. So I can download the historical data and play with it whatever way I want to. This is an example of using NSC Pi. Now I also use the direct APIs which I reverse engineered. So for an example of this, I'm going to show now. So here you can see in this script, I'm just trying to figure out volume breakouts. So I have maintained a list of all the stocks which are listed and all the non-FNO stock. I just separated them out. So now here you can see that I have not imported any NSC Pi or NSC Python. I am not using any framework. I will be directly calling NSC's API. So now you can see in my main function, I am hitting this securities in FNO. You can see this API. I'll just copy it again and I'll paste it in the browser. This is the data which I am getting. So I just showed it to you. I'll show it again. Now if I paste it in the JSON formatter, so here it is. So all the securities which are in FNO, I am getting their data, which also gives me their total traded volume. This actually is live traded volume. When you run this, when you hit this API in market hours, this traded volume will actually update. So yes, so this basically total traded volume will actually update live, and this is what I'm using here. So I am calling request.get and I'm getting this data, and then whatever response I get from that, I am extracting the data field. So where is my data field? So this is my data. So if I have to condense it, you can see these are the things which are there in this response, JSON response: name, advance. So basically you get that data is here, and data is actually a lot of lines from line number 9 to 8984 is all data. So this data I receive, and then I extract the total traded volume and I compare it with the historical volume. And for historical volume, I am using another NSC API, which is downloading the Bhav copy data. So Bhav copy data CSV I download. It's freely available on the NSC website. And from Bhav copy data, I download yesterday's volume and day before yesterday. So I compare it today's volume with yesterday's volume. So something like that. So I am having yesterday's data and day before yesterday's data. And once these three are compared, I can figure out whether today's volume is higher than the previous 2 days or not. So you saw a couple of examples now. One is using a framework, import NSC. So basically, pip install NSC by use the functions which it provides, or you can just write a script which has its own it basically invokes the APIs from NSC's website directly. Like this is an NSC API, and this is also an NSC API from NSC India website. So these are some of the ways in which you can get the data from NSC and use it for your own purposes. So I think that covers the three things. So popular Python packages you can use, or you can use the freely available APIs, and that's how you sample. That's a sample usage of this. Uh, and maybe in the future, maybe I'll try to do a small video on how I actually start about writing these kind of scripts, and uh, what are the basic issues which we may run into when we are calling the APIs from NSC. And maybe I'll also try to show integration with the broker in coming videos. So thanks guys, thanks for watching.